Hello, I'm Arthur Black. Welcome to Weird Homes, a show that looks at the most unusual and bizarre homes in North America. Now, do not adjust your set. The colors you see here are real. In fact, the theme of today's show could be Color Your World in Dayglow. We're going to visit a house that's got everything from stripes on the ceiling to polka dots on the floor. We'll also drop in on a Hamtramck Disneyland. This is a retirement project that turned a Detroit back alley into Whirligig Central. And remember Carmen Miranda, the Hollywood star who used to wear fruit on her head? Wait till you meet Charlotte Davis. Her whole home wears fruit, and so does her car. You know what you get when an artist goes crazy at home? You get daring decor. The home of Diane Woodward, a kaleidoscope of color. This is Dmitro with one of his daffier inventions, and that would be Charlotte Davis answering the peel of her banana phone. Charlotte, hello. Dmitro, and Diane, three folks who believe in daring decor. Diane Woodward lives in a small, conservative, rural town, and the way she lives tends to make her stand out somewhat. Folks in Madoc, Ontario have never seen anyone quite like Diane. Maybe it's the flamboyant costumes that Diane wears, or perhaps it's the bike of many colors she rides. Most likely, it's the way she's decorated her house.
You should have seen this place when I bought it. It was beige on beige, 10 layers of beige wallpaper. No work had been done in the house in about 40 years, and really needed some color. And it was just like a big bare canvas. I had it drywalled from top to bottom, and I had no choice but to paint it. And it was kind of a challenge not to paint all the rooms red, red being my favorite color for a room.
Dragons coming out of the walls, fish hanging from the ceiling, and tables everywhere you look. Happy tables. Most home decorators go for a color scheme that blends and complements. Diane couldn't agree less.
I've been making tables a long time. This is my most recent and my favorite. This is Boris. And this is where we are. When I first moved here, this room was yellow and white. It was the only colored room in the house. The rest of it was beige. Very beige. Some people assume that clash is a negative thing. I find it interesting. But it seems to me that one of the worst things is dreariness and boredom. And like, I've seen beautiful plain stuff, but I don't have the temperament for that.
Maybe it's got something to do with Diane's jabba-jag. She used to drink up to 45 cups of coffee a day. She says she's cut back a bit, but the walls of her 12-room cavalcade of colors home haven't mellowed any. Needless to say, this room looked different when Diane first moved in. Different and a little mysterious.
It was a strange little room. Like, it's got a toilet in the corner, but 3 doors, a window, no privacy at all. And then I heard that there was an old lady who lived here alone, and she needed a bathroom downstairs as she got older. So that was one mystery solved. There are other mysteries, though. Why don't we go upstairs? So I was telling my brother-in-law about what I was painting the floors and the stairs, and he told me, you know, you're gonna have to live with that. And I thought, yeah, I am. And it goes right into the bathroom.
And if Diane's bathroom isn't lively enough for you, wait till you see the next room on the tour.
And this is the summer bedroom. And in here, we have the ecstasy of the beast. See, we're just rolling in joy between a tank of triggerfish and a tank of turtles. First thing in the morning, I'm faced with Ganesh, the Indian god who removes obstacles. And last thing at night, the last thing I see, the desert tortoise, my guard tortoise. And this is my studio. This is where I do the paint.
For a woman in love with bright colors, Diane has a strange fascination for the black and whitest critter in the animal kingdom.
I've painted zebras for years. I just think it's a beautiful way for a horse to dress. So many of my paintings are so saturated with very, very bright colors. I get carried away and it can just look too sweet. So black and white, I find it's as high a contrast as red and yellow. It's as exciting.
Her Madoc neighbors may think Diane's a tad exotic, but to her good pal Wally, who drops in from the city occasionally, she's just plain folks.
Hello? Diane? No, no, I never worked in a restaurant.
Check out the chair Wally's about to sit on. What's that made of? Paper mache? High-impact plastic? Nope, it's good old wood.
And there are a lot of people making things out of wood that look like wood. I love to work with wood, but then I cut it and paint it and then varnish it 6 times till it looks like plastic. And that makes me quite happy. Somebody came in here one day and she said, "Where do you go when you have a headache?" I find in a red room, I'm just like, it's so satisfying that the mind can just stay there and be happy. Once you paint a room red, you never have to paint it again. You can't make it any better.
Diane's not a small-town person by nature. She's lived in big cities like Montreal, a yoga ashram in the Bahamas, and now a small town in Ontario, where even buying a can of paint can raise some eyebrows.
The guys in the paint store, when I put the first order in, they called back and said, "Are you sure?" I guess they had never had a paint order like that before. This is a small town, and after a couple of months, I'd meet somebody, and they'd say, "Yeah, we've peeked in your windows." If that had happened in the city, I'd have just called the cops. But it seemed everybody that I was bumping into and being introduced to had already looked in my windows.
One neighbor who gets a kick out of Diane lives right next door. Dwayne Adams figures that Diane's put Madoc on the map.
Well, we have a lot more traffic going by now. A lot more people actually come around it pretty much every day, actually, than when before she was here. I think they come around to actually see what she's done that day.
When Diane picks up a paintbrush, she doesn't fool around. Diane, have you thought of maybe switching to decaf? New day, new costume. When an entire house is your canvas, there's no such thing as a day off.
It's become a work in progress. And you just keep going, and you just can't go far enough. And when you do, you just add more. I find color is probably my favorite thing. I get most of my pleasure through my eyes. So what could be more luxurious than everywhere you look to see colors and shapes and things that you choose?
Diane's philosophy of life: number 1, find out what makes you happy. Number 2, go for it.
It seems I can be happy wherever I am as long as I can work. And as long as I can get good red paint.
Welcome to downtown Hamtramck, Michigan. This is really a city within a city. It's on the east side of Detroit. A lot of European immigrants settled in Hamtramck after World War II. Dmitro was one of them. He came to the U.S. in 1949 from the Ukraine. Like most people around here, he worked in the local auto assembly plant. Dmitro put in his time at the car plant, but when he retired, he turned to what he really wanted to do. Dmitro transformed his backyard and the roofs of 2 garages into a back alley carnival. The place is festooned with whirligigs, propellers, thingamabobs, and whatchamacallits. Dmitro says he built it to celebrate his Ukrainian heritage and to honor the country that took him in. Dmitro proudly calls it Hamtramck Disneyland.
Then I start making so small thing. Then I see them working. I think, yeah, that's good. I make it different, more, double, then go up, and make a big story. Okay, I go in the room.
Dmitro's wonderland is at its most magnificent when the wind stirs his folkloric fantasies into a frenzy of activity. But when nature won't cooperate, Dmitro's willing to climb up on the roof and prod his creations to life. For Dmitro, it's a retirement hobby. But for many in the Detroit artistic community, this backyard is a motherlode of creativity, a treasure trove of homegrown folk art.
You look ahead.
You must be eating Dutch cookies lately. Is that what it's got you going on this?
I know.
Hamtramck's mayor, Gary Zitch, is a big supporter of Dmitro, and not just because it's good politics. Mayor Zitch is also a sculptor and a professor of art at a local college.
A local treasure is a good description for this, and I think it's an honest expression. I think it does describe Dmitro's values and what he has learned as a person in terms of skills. I think what we'd classify it as, it would be something that would be in the line of folk art or isolate art, someone that works without the academic training but creates something out of their own appreciation, their own skills, and their own love of a handmade object.
Even though Hamtramck's Disneyland is hidden away in the back alley of a residential neighborhood, admirers from all over the world find their way to this enchanted fantasyland. Last year, over 800 people signed Dmitro's guest book. Some came from as far away as Japan. Does everyone who visits Dmitro's creation fall under its spell? Almost, but it has its detractors.
You can't please everybody, but of course, I think that the fact that it's been here for a long time has become a part of the neighborhood, and it's the neighborhood would lose its character if the environment were to dissolve.
Some of his neighbors think Dmitro's the best thing that ever happened to Hamtramck.
I like it. I love it because you know it's nice. He calls me when he has something new. He always shows to me first before he puts it out. What do I call it? Being creative. Because he is creative. My husband is not. So he's a carpenter, but you know, he's not a carpenter, but he likes this kind of job.
But a backyard folk art playland like this can be a little overpowering.
I don't think everybody likes it. Like next door to me, my neighbor, he doesn't talk to him because he doesn't care for that. But most of the people don't bother him. They don't mind having it.
But Dmitro didn't build his masterpiece to please the neighbors, and he has no plans to throw in the towel anytime soon. As for cashing in, Dmitro makes it very clear that Hamtramck's Disneyland is not for sale.
Somebody tell me, do you sell? Probably you get sick. Yeah, because I bought a so nice thing I saw. Oh my gosh, I make a big mistake.
There are Disneylands to visit in Paris, California, and Florida, but perhaps the most unusual one is tucked away in a back alley of East Detroit. To San Francisco now, home of the Golden Gate Bridge, Candlestick Park, and Charlotte Davis. Charlotte came to San Francisco back during the heady hippie days of the 60s. Maybe she listened to Donovan's Mellow Yellow one too many times because Charlotte's got a weird thing about fruit.
Casa Maria. Vegetables, very beautiful. Bueno, good-looking vegetables.
She used to be a microbiologist, but Charlotte found the scientific life a little too constricting. So she traded in her test tubes for an artist's easel. But she's not your typical canvas painting, still life sculpting, pottery firing artist. Charlotte chose the medium of fruit and vegetables. And it was all because of the laughing lady she's painting on her hood. Carmen Miranda was a Brazilian singer and actor who took Hollywood by storm back in the 40s. Carmen was never hard to spot. She was the one who wore fruit on her head. Charlotte liked Carmen's style. She began to dress like Carmen and to find out all she could about her.
She was brilliant and very political, and she was the highest paid woman in the United States in 1940. And I was born then. So I figured there's some connection between being a highly paid person who wears fruit on their head and me.
But if you really want to know how much Charlotte likes the Brazilian bombshell, check out her car. It's a 1982 Honda, named Carmen.
Back here we have the actual altar to Carmen. This is was set up originally for Day of the Dead, and it has all the components of an altar. But there are just great things here that have to do with Carmen. And this in particular, for those who know Bugs Bunny, was a very famous 1940 cartoon in which Bugs played Carmen Miranda. This is a Carmen Miranda album from that time. Actually, I believe this is very close to the picture that I used for the front. Carmen has been dead for over 50 years, but her image is still being used, it's still alive, it's still very fresh. It's so specific that all you have to do is put fruit on the top of something, and everyone knows it's Carmen Miranda.
When Charlotte goes home, Carmen the car has to stay outside, but that's okay. Inside Charlotte's apartment is another shrine to Señorita Miranda and a few other collectibles.
And this is the kitchen with my salt and pepper shaker collection. This is a good part of it.
Well, you know how it goes. You pick up a neat knick-knack in a junk store, then you see another piece that's even cuter, and another, and before you know it, you're a collector.
I started getting salt and pepper shakers. Were very little and very inexpensive, like 25 and 50 cents. And much of my collection was bought at that level. And I didn't realize how much stuff you could get and pack in and how weird it is. These are very popular. These very small, little anthropomorphic fruits and vegetables. Short ones, waving, crawling, two very popular poses. This is a small collection of plastics from the 50s. Perfect replicas, which were given as prizes. If you bought a washing machine, you would get the washing machine salt and pepper shaker with it. If you bought a coffee pot. I grew up with this coffee pot, the very one my mother used.
Charlotte, they're wonderful. Your whole kitchen is wonderful, but you've barely got room to fry an egg. What's the payoff for you?
All through history, people have done this. They have decorated their everyday objects. They've painted on them. They've changed them into other shapes. This is a continuum of a very sort of deep need that people have to decorate their surroundings. So for me, I feel very connected to these pieces.
So how does Charlotte Davis choose which salt and pepper shakers to purchase? By price? By color? By beauty? Hardly.
These could be among the ugliest salt and pepper shakers ever made. Can you see those? Look at those. That's Adam and Eve. And if there was an Adam and Eve, I suspect they looked more like this than any other picture you've seen of Adam and Eve. There's the apple.
And what are you supposed to say if you find these on the dinner table? Please pass the presidential pepper?
Now these, in case you haven't noticed, are not fruits and vegetables, although some people would say that our presidents are fruits and vegetables. So here's, this is Clinton and Mrs. And you'll notice how they're moving. They're called nodders. That's the type of salt and pepper shaker they are. And one nods one way and one nods the other usually. Why anyone in their right mind would ever design and produce a Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew salt and pepper shaker, I don't know. But here they are. And I'm not the only one who has them, but I am one of a few people who bothered to buy them. These are the best.
Believe it or not, what you see in Charlotte's kitchen and living room is just a fraction of her whole collection. The rest is here, in a back room, carefully cataloged and stored.
The worst thing about having all this stuff is that you run out of room for your stuff. I have about twice as much stuff as will fit in this apartment. And I'm not sure what the next step is.
Whatever the next step is, you can be sure Charlotte won't be shy about taking it. This is an artist who has no problem daring to be different.
I don't understand why people are so afraid to just simply be individuals and do whatever the heck they want and look however they want and, you know, glue things on their car if they want. I just don't think it should be that odd. I think it should be more common than it is.
Ditto for Diane Woodward, an artist in love with black, white, and every color in between. And don't forget Dmitro, the Walt Disney of Detroit, and fruit fanatic Charlotte Davis. You know, places like this make me feel like my entire life is beige. I'm gonna go home right now and paint my fridge fire engine red. I'm Arthur Black. Hope you enjoyed Weird Homes. We'll see you next time.